What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of 10 Minutes of Magic here on the Cast. My name is Ben Bateman, and today we're talking to you about a brand new show that we are affectionately on this channel calling Hipster Magic. Just kidding, that's something Alex Kessler came up with. This is a show I'm doing called The Best Version. It's a brand new thing, and I'm trying it out for the very first time. So today we're going to be examining the card Sol Ring. Sol Ring is a card a lot of you guys are very familiar with. A little bit of history. Sol Ring was originally printed in the very first Magic set Alpha back in 1993. It has 21 paper printings that are functionally different printings, even though in other languages I believe the card is floating around. The only printing out of English that is a specifically different card is the French printing, which we are going to get to. Today we're going to be counting down the 10 coolest versions of this card to own. And remember, this is just my opinion. This is just exactly how I feel about it, but the reason Alex joked and called it Hipster Magic is because I have a thing for weird promos. Now, Sol Ring is not a card that's a weird promo. Sol Ring is a card that is very, very well loved. It's probably the single most prominent card in the entire Commander format, and when it was originally printed alongside Black Lotus and the 5 Moxen, was looked at as, you know, the 7th most powerful of those cards. When in reality, looking back at those cards from that original printing, it does actually just feel like it's probably about as good as a Mox in some cases. In some powered formats, it's a little different, but Sol Ring is such an essential piece of getting ahead in so many different formats of Magic that we play. So today, we're going to talk about the 10 versions of Sol Ring in descending order that I think are the coolest. So let's get started, guys. Number 10, I'm going to jump in very first with the Magic Fest 2019 promo. So the art that you can see here next to me is awesome. It's really cool. It's a reprised art by Mark Teeden, who did the original Sol Ring art. This would be a little higher for me. It's just that it's a little bit common at this point. If you go to a lot of Magic Fests, if you play in events, you probably have one of these. They're floating around. They're not too expensive. And because, of course, the printing of the card has happened so many times now, this is one that, you know, even as a player that plays less Commander than Modern or Pioneer or other formats, I have 3 of these. And so each of my Commander decks, well, 3 of my 4 Commander decks has one of these in it. So I like the card. I think the art's very cool. It is cool to see Mark Teeden reprising it, but that is going to come in at number 10 for me. Number 9, this may surprise you guys, is the second iteration of the art by Mike Barrick. This is the one that we saw in the From the Vault series. And the printing here that I have is the Commander 2011 printing. So this was the first time that we saw this widely available in a non-foil version that you could get in every single starter deck. And it's the very first printing. I have a special place in my heart for those cards. I remember getting those decks. I bought all those decks because I thought it was so cool to see some of those cards exist. Of course, this does have the tap to add a colorless 2 symbol as opposed to the 2 wingding symbols now that we get on the printing of this card, so it's a little different. It has a little bit of throwback. There's a few versions that have that. The art is really, really cool. There are a couple iterations of this particular art that are on my list, and I do love it. I think that this art looks a little better in foil than not in foil, which we're going to get to in a second, but this is going to come in at number 9 for me. This is another one that I have a couple copies of. Sol Ring is that weird card because of the number of printings and how available they want this card to be. We all kind of have a number of copies of this card probably, and the little symbol there when you talk about the Commander series and all the different versions that it's come out with, whether it's, you know, in one of the newer Commander sets or a pre-con or it's in a mystery booster, you don't almost even pay attention to the symbol. That's just something, again, Hipster Magic, I kind of do. I like to pay attention to the symbol. So coming in now at number 8 for me is actually going to be the revised Sol Ring. So revised, obviously this is the older art. This is the most prominently available copy. This is the one that the most people have. I own one of these at this point. It's kind of beat up. I had these growing up. It's the first iteration of that original Mark Teeden art that's on our list. And I do have to say, when it comes to this card, this is far and away my favorite art. So the richer and the cooler and the more beautiful that art starts to look on the version of the card, the cooler it is for me and the more desirable it is for me. I don't believe I ever cracked a Sol Ring in a revised pack, but there is something when I imagine, you know, those packs, especially because they're still open today sometimes, those packs you can still buy them for at least not an arm and a leg. I still hope that at some point maybe I will actually get a hold of a revised pack and I will get to crack a revised Sol Ring. It's a really, really beautiful iteration of the card. So that's going to come in at number 8 for me. Number 7 is going to be the From the Vault series Sol Ring. So From the Vault, you know, this is from the Relics one that was probably back in 2011, I would say. And this is the foil version of that art we talked about, the Mike Barrick art. So it's a very, very cool piece of artwork. It looks really great foiled out. This is one that, you know, at the time it was really exciting. You could buy this in a premium set. There hadn't been a foil version of Sol Ring printed that was widely available to this point. I believe the only other version appears higher on the list. Could be wrong about the printing order about that, but I believe the version I'm talking about came out earlier than this. So obviously, this version is the one of the earliest premium versions of this card that anybody really could get their hands on. And I know at the time was really a hot ticket. So I'm definitely a fan of this version of the card. I think it's really, really cool. I've personally never owned one. The foiling process on the From the Vault series does look really great. It feels really great. It's got a nice sheen to it. It's got a nice weight to it. The cards don't warp particularly badly, so it's a good one to own. And it's definitely one that if you're looking for a really kind of cool and maybe a little less common premium version of the card, I think that's a great one to get your hands on. We're going to continue moving through the list here, getting to our number 5 slot. Let me just make sure I'm doing this the right way. Number 6 for me is the Unlimited Soul Ring. I'm sorry. So Unlimited is obviously the set that comes after Alpha, Beta, Revised in terms of the core sets. Now it's got that darker printing. It's very rich looking. It's very cool. It's got that rich look of almost a Beta card, but with a white border. So most people will sort of think of Unlimited cards in their look and feel as just the step up from Revised. It does come down to whether or not you like the lighter, kind of cleaner, washed out look, or if you like that slightly older, darker, richer look. I tend to prefer the older, darker, richer look, and I do think it looks really, really great. We've talked about the artwork. It is the Mark Teeden artwork as well. So this is one that I've never owned. Most copies that you see of Unlimited Soul Rings, it feels like at least ones people play with, they tend to be kind of beaten up. And I do think that the white border old cards, when they're a little beat up, they don't really look as good. So it's why I think this version of the card for me feels a little lower. Higher than Revised, of course, but not as high as some of the classic versions we're going to get to. Coming up next on my list, number 5, and this is kind of a weird one, is Amanu Solaire. This is the French version of the card. So this is pure hipster magic takes right here. So it looks kind of different, right? The coloring is a little bit different. The text feels a little smaller. It's got the old border, obviously, but it's just it's weird. It's not like it's a more beautiful looking Magic card. There are more beautiful versions below this on the list. I would argue that honestly, even just the look of any of the Commander non-foil versions probably look a little better than this card, but it's such a weird version that is so rare to come up that I do think that it's a very, very cool thing to own. And if I was, opening hand of a game where in a format where I could play Sol Ring, this is definitely one that I think would be pretty awesome to slam down on turn 1. You always want that thing when you play a card where someone looks and they're like, oh, let me see that. Oh, I haven't seen that before. And this is one that I'll be honest with you guys, I've never seen in person. I've seen cards from this cycle before, but I've never seen one in person. I am going to throw out, by the way, just so you guys know, in case you're counting towards it, the Summer Magic version of Sol Ring. It's extraordinarily rare, but that entire cycle of the Edgar series, the ones that are intended to kind of fix the misprints from Revised in 1994, are so rare and so odd. I can't even find confirmation that that card exists. I've never seen one in person. People talk about it. It feels like it's almost a myth. I've seen it listed for $6,000 for sale, but it's not one that comes up very often as an actual thing people have. So I'm taking that one out, but feel free to respond in the comments below if you've seen one or you have one or you think I'm wrong. So coming up now at number 4 on my list, and this is one, I think this is going to blow some people out because I've got the Masterpiece Sol Ring. I have the Masterpiece Kaladesh Sol Ring at number 4. I think it's super duper duper cool looking. This is one that I've looked at. I've considered buying a number of times. It is a gorgeous card. It's a card that if you bought in when it first came out, you're smart because it definitely went up in price. It is really, really, really awesome. The artwork is done by a gentleman by the name of Volkan Baga. It's a different take on the art. It's a little bit more abstract looking. It doesn't quite, for me, evoke the same feeling. It doesn't have that same kind of rich look as the original, and it doesn't symbolize to me the Sol Ring thing as much as the newer art did, but it is unique, and it's the only piece of art that you can find this card with. So this is the only version of this artwork. They never reuse the artwork, so it's a very rare thing, and I think as we go forward, because there is just the one version of this card, it's going to get rarer and rarer. Now for the top of my list, coming up next, we have number 3, and that is going to be the DCI Judge Promo Sol Ring. Now, in almost any other case, this would just be the number 1 on the list. The only reason it's not, obviously, is because the versions that we have ahead of it have that really, really prestige feel to them. I have a real soft spot in my heart, you guys are going to find if I do more of these videos, for the old DCI promos that have the actual foiling DCI written on the card somewhere. I love those. It's got the the shooting star on there, the twinkle. It's such a cool, I don't know why, there's something about like the time in Magic that it symbolizes to me that I just absolutely freaking love. It's got such a different look to the red, the fire, the background because of the foiling process, and it really is a very unique version of this card. It's probably the one that if I didn't obviously have $1 billion to spend, that I would want to own the most. It's that Mark Teeden art, and it is a very, very cool thing. I also, it has DCI on the back of the card, but it also has it on the far right where you would have the expansion symbol, and you'll find that most of my rankings of cards cards, I value those very highly. Next up at 2 and at 1, we are going to have the alpha and the beta versions respectively. I'm gonna put beta at number 2 and alpha at number 1. It doesn't feel fair to talk about them separately. The only major difference is that alpha is a little darker and has rounded edges, whereas beta is not, but otherwise they're functionally identical. They are such a baller version of this card to play. If you actually have one of these, if you actually have one of these that you get to play in a game, it feels like you're really laying it on the table there. It is the coolest thing you can do, and I personally have never owned an alpha or a beta Sol Ring, but it's on my short list of cards all time that I would love to own. It just symbolizes so much of Magic's history, and I do truly believe the sort of darker, richer, more flushed version of alpha is probably the premium version, just for the purpose of it looks so much richer, the red is so rich, and the rounded edges. It is the ultimate boss move to have. So, you know, if you have one of those, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you guys agree with my rankings? Do you disagree? Is this a series you'd want to see more of? Let me know below in the comments. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the alert so you know when new videos go up. This is 10 Minutes of Magic back on the MMcast, and this was the best version. Hipster Magic, maybe we're calling it that. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys. Be sure to subscribe at the MMcast on Twitter and follow me at Ben Bateman Media. We'll see you guys on the next one.